What is offside? The rule Americans find most confusing. Imagine scoring the winning goal in a FIFA World Cup match. 80,000 fans jump to their feet. Your teammates sprint towards you. The stadium erupts. Millions of people watching around the world celebrate. For a few incredible seconds, you feel like the hero of an entire nation. And then, the referee raises a finger to his earpiece. Players stop celebrating. The giant screen shows a replay. The crowd suddenly becomes quiet. A few moments later, the referee makes a gesture. No goal. It's cancelled. Not because of a foul, not because of a handball, not because the ball went out of play. Just one word, offside. And if you're new to soccer, your first reaction is usually the same as everyone else's. What just happened? Why doesn't the goal count? How can a player score and still not score? The truth is that offside is probably the most misunderstood rule in soccer. Every World Cup, millions of new fans encounter it for the first time. Even experienced fans sometimes disagree about whether a player was actually offside. Social media explodes. Television analysts argue. Comment sections fill with debates. And yet, the purpose of the rule is actually very simple. In fact, once you understand why offside exists, the entire game starts making much more sense. The good news, you don't need to memorize complicated diagrams. You don't need to study a rule book. And you definitely don't need to become a referee. By the end of this video, you'll understand the offside rule better than most first-time World Cup viewers. You'll know why goals get cancelled. You'll know when a player is offside. You'll know when they're not. And you'll finally understand the one rule that confuses millions of fans every single year. But before we explain how offside works, we need to answer an even more important question. Why does this rule exist in the first place? Imagine a soccer match without the offside rule. An attacker could simply stand next to the opponent's goal for the entire game. They wouldn't need to help build the attack. They wouldn't need to work with their teammates. They would just wait for a long pass and an easy chance to score. That might sound exciting at first, but in reality, it would make the game far less interesting. Defenders would be forced to stay deep near their own goal. Teams would become stretched across the field, and much of the strategy that makes soccer beautiful would disappear. Instead of coordinated attacks and clever movement, teams would spend much of the game launching long balls toward players waiting near the goal. Matches would become less tactical and far more predictable. That's exactly why the offside rule was created. The rule encourages attackers to stay connected to the play. It rewards good timing instead of simply rewarding players who stand closest to the goal. And it creates a balance between attacking and defending. Without offside, soccer would look completely different. With it, players must constantly think about positioning, movement, and timing. Defenders try to hold their line. Attackers try to time their runs perfectly. And that battle creates some of the most exciting moments in the sport. That's one reason why the rule remains such an important part of the game today. But knowing why the rule exists is only the first step. Now let's look at what actually makes a player offside. Alright, this is the moment you've been waiting for. The simplest explanation of offside you'll ever hear. Forget everything you've heard before. Forget complicated diagrams. Forget referee terminology. Let's make this easy. Imagine an attacker is running toward the opponent's goal. At the same time, one of his teammates is about to pass him the ball. The exact moment that pass is made is the only moment that matters. Not when the player receives the ball, not when he shoots, not when he scores. Only the moment the ball is passed. Now here's the key rule. When the pass is made, the attacker must have at least two opponents between himself and the goal line. Most of the time, one of those opponents is the goalkeeper. If he does, he's onside. Play continues, but if he's already beyond that line of defenders when the pass is made, he's offside. The referee stops play, the attack ends, and any goal scored from that play will not count. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine a defender is standing near midfield. Another defender is a few yards behind him. An attacker times his run perfectly and stays level with that second defender. His teammate makes the pass. That's legal, even if he immediately runs past everyone and scores, because he was in a legal position when the pass was made. Now imagine the same situation, but this time, the attacker starts his run too early. When the pass is made, he's already beyond the second to last defender, even if he scores an amazing goal, even if nobody touches him, even if the goalkeeper never had a chance. the goal will be disallowed because he gained an unfair advantage by being too far ahead before the play developed. Here's an easy shortcut that many fans use. If an attacker leaves too early, it's probably offside. If he times his run correctly, it's probably onside. That's why timing is so important in soccer. Elite attackers spend years mastering this skill. The difference between a brilliant goal and an offside call can be just a fraction of a second. Sometimes only a few inches separate a legal run from an illegal one. And that's why you'll often see players celebrating a goal, then nervously looking towards the assistant referee, because they know they may have left just a little too early. The good news is that understanding offside is already becoming easier. You don't need to memorize every detail. You only need to remember one thing: the position of the attacker at the exact moment the pass is made. That's the secret. But there's something that confuses new fans even more. Sometimes a player looks offside, yet the referee allows play to continue. Why? Because there are several situations where a player cannot be called offside at all. And those exceptions are incredibly important to understand. Let's look at them next. Now here's where many new fans get confused. Sometimes you'll see an attacker standing closer to the goal than almost every defender. The pass is played. The attacker receives the ball. And yet, no offside. Play continues. So what happened? The answer is simple. Being in an offside position is not automatically an offense. Let me say that again. A player can be standing in an offside position and still not be penalized. This surprises a lot of new fans, because most people assume that simply being ahead of the defenders is enough. It's not. The player must actually become involved in the play. In other words, the referee only cares if the player gains an advantage from that position. Let's look at an example. Imagine an attacker is standing beyond the defensive line. His teammate passes the ball, but the ball goes to another teammate instead. The offside player never touches the ball. He doesn't interfere with a defender. He doesn't block the goalkeeper's view. In that case, play continues. No offside. Now let's look at another important exception. A player cannot be offside directly from a goal kick. This means a goalkeeper can launch the ball all the way down the field, even if an attacker is standing behind every defender. Offside cannot be called. The same thing applies to throw-ins. If the ball comes directly from a throw-in, there is no offside offense. And there's one more exception: corner kicks. Whenever the ball is played directly from a corner kick, offside does not apply. These exceptions are important because they create some of the most dangerous attacking situations in soccer. Now let's talk about another scenario that confuses people. Imagine an attacker is standing in an offside position. His teammate takes a shot. The attacker never touches the ball, but he's standing directly in front of the goalkeeper. Suddenly, the referee blows the whistle. Offside. Why? Because even without touching the ball, that player affected the play. He may have blocked the goalkeeper's vision. He may have distracted a defender. He may have interfered with the opponent's ability to react. And that's enough for an offside offense. This is why offside can sometimes seem complicated. It's not only about where a player is standing, it's also about whether that player becomes involved in the action. The best way to think about it is this: offside is not about location alone. It's about location plus involvement. Once you understand that idea, many controversial calls suddenly make much more sense. But now, we're about to enter the situations that cause the biggest arguments in soccer. The moments where millions of fans watching the exact same replay completely disagree with each other. Let's look at the most common offside situations you'll see during a World Cup match. Now that you understand the basic rule, let's look at some real situations you'll see during almost every soccer match. These are the moments that confuse new fans the most, and sometimes even experienced fans get them wrong. Let's start with the most common situation. A midfielder spots a striker making a run behind the defense. The pass is played. The striker receives the ball. The crowd erupts, but suddenly the assistant referee raises the flag. Offside. This happens because the striker started his run a fraction of a second too early. Maybe it was only a foot. Maybe it was only a shoulder. But at the moment the pass was made, he was already beyond the second to last defender. And that's enough. Now let's look at another situation. The attacker and defender appear perfectly level. The pass is played. The attacker runs through and scores. Some fans immediately think it's offside. But according to the rules, being level with the defender is legal. In soccer, ties go to the attacker. If the attacker is exactly in line with the second to last defender when the pass is made, play continues. No offside. This is why you'll often hear commentators say, "He's perfectly onside." Now here's a situation that creates endless debate. A player is running toward goal. The defender is sprinting back. The pass is played. Everything happens in less than a second. At full speed, it looks impossible to judge. That's because it often is. Human eyes can only process so much information at once. This is one reason VAR became such an important part of modern soccer. We'll talk more about that later. Now let's look at another common example. An attacker takes a shot. The goalkeeper makes a save. The ball rebounds directly to another attacker. That second attacker scores. Simple goal, right? Not necessarily. If the second attacker was in an offside position when the original shot was taken, the goal may be disallowed. Why? Because the rebound didn't reset the play. The offside position still matters. This is one of the situations that surprises many new fans. Now imagine something slightly different. A defender deliberately controls the ball. He tries to make a pass. The pass goes wrong. An attacker intercepts it and scores. In many cases, this would not be offside, because the defender intentionally played the ball. That action may reset the offside situation. As you can see, offside isn't always black and white. Small details matter. The timing of the pass matters. The movement of the players matters. And sometimes the difference between a legal goal and a cancelled goal is incredibly small. That's why offside decisions create so much discussion. Every weekend, every tournament, every World Cup. Millions of fans watch the same replay and come to different conclusions. And that's exactly why offside remains one of the most debated rules in sports. But if the rules seem so clear on paper, why do fans still argue about it all the time? Let's find out. By now, the offside rule probably sounds much simpler than you expected. And honestly, the basic rule is simple. So why does it create so many arguments? Why do fans, players, coaches, commentators, and even former referees sometimes disagree about the exact same play? The answer comes down to one thing: precision. Soccer is a game played at incredible speed. Professional players can sprint at more than 20 miles per hour. Passes happen in fractions of a second. Runs are timed to perfection. And the offside decision depends on one very specific moment. The exact instant the ball leaves the passer's foot. Think about how difficult that is. An assistant referee has to watch the player making the pass, watch the attacking runner, watch the defensive line, and determine everything at the exact same time, all within a split second. That's why even the best referees in the world occasionally face difficult decisions. Now imagine a World Cup match. The score is tied. There are only minutes remaining. A striker scores what appears to be the winning goal. The entire stadium explodes. Fans celebrate, players celebrate, commentators scream into their microphones. Then the replay appears. Suddenly, everyone starts looking for the same thing. Was the attacker offside? One group of fans says yes. Another group says no. And both sides are completely convinced they're right. That's because our eyes naturally struggle to judge tiny differences in movement. A player's shoulder, a player's knee, a player's foot. Sometimes these small details determine whether a goal counts or not. And that's where the controversy begins. Another reason fans argue about offside is emotion. Nobody likes seeing their team lose a goal, especially during a major tournament. If a goal is disallowed against your team, it feels unfair, even if the decision is technically correct. Emotion often influences how people see a replay. Fans don't just watch with their eyes, they watch with their hearts. And that's what makes soccer so passionate. Now let's talk about another reason offside creates debate. The rule has evolved over time. The modern interpretation is much more detailed than it was decades ago. Today, referees must consider things like, did the player interfere with an opponent? Did the player block the goalkeeper's vision? Did the player gain an advantage from their position? These extra considerations sometimes make decisions more complicated than simply checking where a player was standing. And then there's technology. Modern broadcasts show slow-motion replays, freeze frames, computer-generated lines, high-definition cameras. Fans can analyze every angle from their living rooms. But even with all that technology, debates still happen. Why? Because soccer isn't always about certainty. Sometimes it's about interpretation. And that's exactly why offside remains one of the most discussed topics in sports. But technology has changed the way these decisions are made. In fact, one invention has completely transformed offside calls at the highest level of the game. It's called VAR. And for better or worse, it changed soccer forever. For decades, offside decisions depended entirely on human judgment. The assistant referee stood on the sideline. The play happened at full speed, and within a split second, a decision had to be made. Sometimes the call was correct, sometimes it wasn't. And because soccer is such a fast game, mistakes were inevitable. A player could be onside by a few inches and still be flagged. A player could be offside and the referee might miss it completely. For years, fans simply accepted that human error was part of the sport. Then everything changed. VAR arrived. VAR stands for Video Assistant Referee. It's a system that allows officials to review important decisions using multiple camera angles and advanced technology. When VAR was introduced, one of its biggest goals was improving offside decisions. Because unlike some fouls, offside is often based on measurable positions. Either the player was ahead of the line, or they weren't. At least in theory. Today, when a goal is scored, VAR automatically checks the entire attacking sequence. Officials review the exact moment the pass was made. They examine the positions of the attackers. They analyze the defensive line. And if necessary, they use digital offside lines to determine whether the player was legally positioned. This process can sometimes take a few seconds. Other times, it may take longer. That's why you've probably seen players celebrating a goal, only to suddenly stop and wait. The fans wait. The coaches wait. The commentators wait. Everyone waits for the final decision. And then one of two things happens: goal confirmed or goal disallowed. In many ways, VAR has made offside decisions more accurate than ever before. But it has also created new debates. Some fans love it. They believe the game should be as fair as possible. Others feel that certain decisions have become too precise. There have been situations where goals were cancelled because an attacker's shoulder, knee, or even the tip of a boot was slightly ahead of the defender. Technically correct, but emotionally frustrating. This has led to one of the biggest discussions in modern soccer. How much precision is too much precision? Should a player lose a goal because of a difference that nobody could see in real time? Fans around the world continue to debate that question. Despite the controversy, one thing is certain: VAR has completely changed how offside is judged. The dramatic mistakes that once decided major tournaments are far less common today. And during the FIFA World Cup, every offside goal is now examined with extraordinary detail. But even with all this technology, some offside moments remain unforgettable. In fact, a few controversial offside decisions have become famous around the world. Let's look at some of the most memorable examples ever seen on a soccer field. By now, you understand how offside works. You understand why the rule exists. And you understand how VAR helps officials make more accurate decisions. But even with all that knowledge, some offside calls remain incredibly controversial. In fact, a few have become part of soccer history, not because of the goals themselves, but because of the debates they created. One of the reasons these moments become so famous is simple. Offside often happens during the biggest moments of the biggest matches. Imagine a World Cup knockout game. The score is tied, the final minutes are ticking away. A team launches one last attack. The ball reaches the net, the stadium explodes, millions celebrate. Then suddenly, the assistant referee raises the flag. Everything changes. In an instant, joy becomes frustration. Hope becomes disappointment. And fans begin arguing immediately. Was the player really offside? Did the referee make the correct decision? Should the goal have counted? These questions can be debated for years. Some famous offside controversies have been discussed for decades. Even today, fans still revisit old replays and argue about what should have happened. What's fascinating is that many controversial offside calls aren't actually wrong. They're simply very close. When a decision comes down to a few inches, emotions often take over. Supporters of one team see one thing. Supporters of the other team see something completely different. The same replay, the same angle, the same evidence, yet two completely opposite conclusions. That's part of what makes soccer unique. The sport creates moments that people remember forever. And controversial offside decisions often become part of that story. In the modern era, VAR has reduced many major mistakes, but it hasn't eliminated controversy. In some ways, technology has created new debates. Now fans don't argue about whether the referee saw the play. They argue about whether the technology is too precise. Should a goal really be cancelled because a player's shoulder was a few inches ahead? Should attackers receive more benefit when the decision is extremely close? These discussions happen every season, every tournament, and every World Cup. The truth is that controversy will probably always be part of soccer, because soccer isn't just about rules, it's about emotion. And when emotions are involved, debates never truly disappear. But now it's time to test your understanding. You've learned the theory, you've learned the examples, you've learned the controversies. The question is, can you actually recognize an offside situation when you see one? Let's find out. Alright, it's time for a quick test. Don't worry, there are no grades. But this is the perfect way to see if you've really understood the offside rule. Let's imagine a few simple situations, and before I reveal the answer, try to decide for yourself, offside or not offside. Ready? Let's begin. Scenario number 1. An attacker is running toward goal. The defensive line is moving up the field. At the exact moment the pass is played, the attacker is perfectly level with the second to last defender. The attacker receives the ball, runs through, scores. What's your decision? Offside or not offside? The answer is not offside. Remember, being level with the defender is legal. The attacker timed the run correctly. The goal should count. Let's try another one. Scenario number 2. An attacker starts running before the pass is played. When the ball leaves his teammate's foot, he is already beyond the second to last defender. He receives the ball and scores. What's your decision? This one is easier. The answer is offside. Even though the finish was perfect, the attacker gained an unfair advantage by moving too early. The goal would be disallowed. Now let's make things a little trickier. Scenario number 3. An attacker is standing in an offside position. His teammate passes the ball, but the pass goes to a different teammate. The offside player never touches the ball. He doesn't interfere with a defender. He doesn't affect the play. What's your decision? Offside or not offside? The answer is not offside. Simply standing in an offside position is not enough. The player must become involved in the action. No involvement, no offense. Now let's try one more. Scenario number 4. An attacker is standing directly in front of the goalkeeper in an offside position. A teammate takes a shot from distance. The attacker never touches the ball, but he blocks the goalkeeper's view. The ball goes into the net. Goal or offside? The answer is offside. Even without touching the ball, the attacker interfered with play by affecting the goalkeeper's ability to react. And that's enough for the referee to penalize the offense. So how did you do? If you got all 4 correct, congratulations. You already understand more about offside than most first-time soccer viewers. And if you missed one or two, don't worry. Even experienced fans occasionally get these situations wrong. The important thing is that you're starting to see what referees look for. They're not just watching where players stand. They're watching timing, movement, and involvement. Once you understand those 3 ideas, offside becomes much easier to recognize. And now it's time to bring everything together. Let's do one final recap and make sure this rule never confuses you again. So let's make sure you'll never be confused by offside again. Throughout this video, we've broken down the most misunderstood rule in soccer step by step. And now you can summarize it in one simple sentence. A player is offside if they're too far ahead when the ball is passed to them, and they become involved in the play. That's it. Of course, there are details, there are exceptions, and there are situations that can become controversial. But the core idea is surprisingly simple. The rule exists to prevent attackers from waiting next to the goal for easy scoring opportunities. It encourages movement, it rewards timing, and it helps keep the game fair and competitive. Now you know why offside exists. You know when a player is offside. You know when a player is not offside. You understand why some goals are cancelled. You understand why fans argue about the rule. And you understand how VAR helps officials make more accurate decisions. The next time you're watching a World Cup match and a commentator mentions offside, you won't be confused. You'll know exactly what they're talking about. In fact, you'll probably understand the situation better than many people watching the game. And that's the great thing about soccer. Once you understand a few key rules, the entire sport becomes much more enjoyable. You begin to notice the tactics, the timing of the runs, the movement of defenders, and the incredible skill required to stay onside while attacking at full speed. Suddenly, a rule that once seemed complicated becomes one of the most fascinating parts of the game. Now, here's a challenge for you. The next time you watch a soccer match, pay attention to the attacking runs. Try predicting whether a player is onside or offside before the replay appears. You'll be surprised how quickly you improve. And if this video helped you understand the offside rule, make sure to subscribe to Soccer Decoded. Throughout the FIFA World Cup 2026, we'll be breaking down the rules, tactics, players, and biggest moments in the world's most popular sport. Whether you're a brand new fan or someone looking to learn more about the game, you're in the right place. Thanks for watching, and welcome to the beautiful game.